But the Constitution, drawn up in 1787 and 1789, has in many ways, I think, become quite a constraining document. I mean, it is amendable in theory, and there have been moments in American history when there have been huge political creativity, especially in the aftermath of the Civil War in the late 19th century. But nowadays, and really for most of the last 70 or 80 years, the American Constitution has been in practice entirely unamendable for anything of any small controversy.
250 years ago, the United States won its independence from the British. There will be a huge celebration in 2 days' time. How did American independence change the world? The best person to answer that is Adam Smith, Professor of US Politics and Political History at the Oxford University. He's with us now. Adam, morning to you.
Good morning, Stig. Good morning.
It's one of those presumably epoch-shifting events, the independence of America. And actually, there was no guarantee, was there, at the time, that it would work, that these original states would still be able to cling together. That's why states' rights has been so important in American history, because presumably there were large numbers of moments where they didn't think the states would cling together.
Yeah, I mean, it was described by George Washington as a great experiment, the United States. I think, if you'd been laying bets, and many people were laying bets in gentlemen's clubs in St. James in the 1770s and 1780s, is this experiment going to last for 250 years? I think you would have got quite long odds on that. The chances were very much against it. Even people who were strong supporters of the revolution and wanted the republic to succeed over the following 20, 30, 40 years, expected that in time Western states, as the Anglo-white population moved west, expected the Western states would break away. And then, of course, there was the huge civil war of the 1860s, which could easily have led to a breakup. So there's lots of contingency all along the way.
Did America become the greatest nation in the world because of its scale and its size and its national resources? That movement west, that sort of manifest destiny to go west, eventually unlocked what became an unstoppable amount of resources to turn them into this great nation.
It's that plus an idealism, which has often been, in fact, not normally been at odds with the reality or the perceived reality. But there's been a set of ideas that were captured and have been continuously recaptured and rearticulated by generations of Americans over the last 250 years, which has transmuted their material and cultural and geographical and strategic geopolitical strength into something that's even greater than that would have been on its own. And now that idealism wasn't invented in America. It's kind of part of a broader liberal tradition. It was also articulated in different ways in France in 1789 and in English history. But the Americans have done it incredibly powerfully and effectively. I'd almost like to say, that if the United States had not been invented 250 years ago, we'd have been searching for it. It's a sort of necessary place, a frustrating, important, gargantuan place, but a kind of necessary in terms of its sort of political, ideological function in the world.
That's such an interesting way of putting it. Is that big? Did that ideology, that's thing it stands for, come from the fact it has an amendable constitution? Is that the thing that enables that to happen over history?
Well, that's a really good question, Stig, and I would say the short answer to that, in my view, controversially maybe to say, is no, right? So I think the ideals are articulated in the Declaration of Independence, which was the document signed on July the 4th, released on July the 4th, 1776. But the Constitution, drawn up in 1787 and 1789, has in many ways, I think, become quite a constraining document. I mean, it is amendable in theory, and there have been moments in American history when there have been huge political creativity, especially in the aftermath of the Civil War in the late 19th century. But nowadays, and really for most of the last 70 or 80 years, the American Constitution has been in practice entirely unamendable for anything of any small controversy. And so you have quite an ossified political structure, constitutional structure, sitting on top and sometimes in tension with a very, sometimes extremely dynamic, albeit very unequal kind of society.
And actually, presumably, things like guns, for example, because it's part of the Constitution, it's an amendment in the Constitution. Is that why it's never really been fixed as a problem? Because I spend a lot of time reading about America. I'm really interested in America. I cannot understand American obsession with guns. I cannot see it as a human right, as it's often declared to be, the right to bear arms. It was clearly invented at a time when they didn't think the states were necessarily going to coalesce forever, and the state government, the federal government, was something to be suspicious of, and the right to bear arms was a kind of survival mechanism. The fact that's lingered on into 2020s is kind of madness to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're both British talking about America, and American listeners will maybe kind of shouting at their devices listening to us talking about this. But I mean, I agree with you, Stig. I mean, look, so there's obviously a lot of cultural factors at play here in terms of the Americans' relationship with guns. Similar factors at play in Canada and Australia and other kind of white settler societies, of course. But there is a very political dimension here, which is that a very strong pro-gun movement, a very, very successful lobby group, has been able to weaponize the Constitution in a way that has made it seem as if, to modern day Americans, in a way that may not have been the case, probably might not have been the case 150 years ago, has made it seem to modern Americans as if this is a completely politically impossible problem, that there are cast iron protections in the Constitution. A constitution written by, bewigged silk-stockinged men in the 18th century that prevent meaningful gun control legislation in the 21st century. There are many other examples, of course, of the ways in which the apparent wisdom or the views of 18th century property gentlemen, most of whom were slaveholders, plays a disproportionate role in American politics in ways that have no parallel in any other country in the world.
I've got a couple of favourite American presidents who arbitrarily. I like Ulysses Grant, I like Teddy Roosevelt. Give us one our listeners might not necessarily think about as an important president to go off and read about.
An important
or an interesting one, not important maybe.
Well, I'll go. You asked me. I'll give you an important. The most important president that your listeners will probably never have heard of is James K. Polk. Right, the Wikipedia. Polk was the president who led the United States in the most extraordinary, successful war of territorial aggrandizement in modern history, where they seized half of Mexico, and the whole of the current western United States was once Mexican territory, absorbed into the United States in the 1840s. So. He's perhaps not an admirable. In some ways, he is an interesting man. He's certainly extraordinarily important, but nowadays almost entirely forgotten president.
There we go, a bit of history. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Adam. Thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you very much.
That's Adam Smith there, Professor of US Politics and Political History at Oxford University. And Kate, I think you're talking to him, aren't you?
We are having a chat. If you like that, you can have more of that conversation because Adam and I are both going to be on a panel, I said almost of experts. It's experts apart from me. Matthew Syed, Adam Smith, Sarah Churchwell and the legendary satirist Harry Shearer. We're going to talk about 250 years of the United States. It's at the Royal Geographical Society. It's on July the 9th. And if you want to come, you can still get tickets for that if you look up at Times Events Tickets.